up, everyone? It is your girl GELBEAUTY 87 here, aka Grace Honey, and today we gonna get into ranking more TikTok makeup. So y'all asked me to do a part 2 with just eyeshadow palette, so that's what we're here to do today. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I'm starting off with, of course, Patrick Ta, because I feel like everybody talks about Patrick Ta, and you know, Patrick Ta is just awesome, so of course they are. I'm gonna start off with his very first palette. This is the Major Dimension eyeshadow palette. So this is what the first one looks like. As y'all know, he always does the thing with the flaps and the cream. So take off my flap. There you go. That's what the palette looks like. As you can see, he likes to do a lot of mid-tone things. And these first shimmers he did with these little sequin type shimmers, or like, I guess iridescent wannabe like topper shades. People weren't feeling. People told him they weren't feeling. And for the second one, he made sure he didn't do that. So I appreciate him for not doing that. This one to me gets like, I guess, a 7, because the mattes are really nice. It's just a couple of dud shimmer shades that he puts in here that made this not be everything that it could have been. Because if he had not done that, it would have been amazing. Just to start off with, they would have been amazing. But because he gave us that, I was just kind of like, like, I gotta knock it down, Patrick, honey. I gotta knock it down. So this right here, this ain't it. So then we have, of course, the Major Dimension 2 eyeshadow palette. Now, this is my personal favorite one, but when you see the tones, if you know anything about me or the channel, you know why. Like, look at these mauve-ish, rosy tone shadows. Now, I will admit it's still a little more warm tone than I prefer. However, I do like the palette enough to still pick it up, obviously. It's gorgeous. I don't ever really use the creams. And again, the downside to this is I feel like a lot of times his palette's a little too mid-toned, and we want more of, you know, a deeper tones. At least I do, because I'm like, a mid-tone palette is just a companion palette, and $70 for a companion palette to me is a little absurd. So the mattes in here are nice, just like last time. The shimmers in here are way better, so they're an amazing shimmer formula here, which I really like. So I would give this one a 10, actually, even though the matte formula, even though the tones are more mid-tone, I really like the shimmers. He always has a great matte formula, so I'm basing it on that, not necessarily my personal preference when it comes to, you know, the fact that the tones are a little too mid-tones for me. But you have to think about the eyeshadow palette collection I have. I can still put it with something else and make it work, so that's why I'm willing to just go ahead and give it a 10. Now we have Major Dimension 3 matte eyeshadow palette. This is the first one where he did all mattes. I was hoping for a more cool tone palette from him, not a half warm tone cool tone, because it's like all his palettes seem to run a little warm a lot. I'd like to see him just do something cool. Everybody else felt like I felt. They wanted him to do one that's similar to ColourPop's That's Taupe palette, because it gives you more of those cool tone, grayish, like beige-ish type ashy shades, and then some great silver and like pewter metallic lid shades would have been nice. This is still nice, so he knows his matte formulas up to par, else he wouldn't have made a whole matte palette. So it's nice. I'm gonna give this a 7 along with the other one, just because there's a lot of shades in here that I can't personally use, but the formula on it is still nice. It's just I was looking for more of a literally just dedicated cool tone palette, since he always has a tendency to do warm, and we did not get that. So that's why I'm kind of just like, Now the face palette that he came out for holiday, the Major holiday palette, I'm just ranking that with the the eye products. The face products in here too. We know his face products are amazing. He always comes out with those. I'm ranking this right here, y'all. When you try these on the lid, oh my god. And then the fact that some of them are like dual chrome shifting shades too, on top of having all this sparkle and wonderful awesomeness in them. It's like, these are amazing. He should have just made this a quad and then put another blush in here like he normally does, and this would have been definitely add-on. But I guess because he already had the individual toppers, he didn't want to have to like make this, and I guess he didn't want to have to make this alone, because then it might have costed more, and he had to have an extra component and all those things you have to think about. So I'm assuming that's why it wasn't done that way. But in all fairness, I feel like he could have just made it look like the Tom Ford quads and put those 4 things into one of his blush components that already exists, and taken the flap off, and then, you know, we could have just had a quad on its own, which is what I would have preferred, and just a blush palette along with that as a separate quad, because it's like, I don't want to have to take this out of my face collection just to do the eyeshadows, and I don't want to have to put it with my eye stuff and then never use the gorgeous pink blush in here called Main Character, because, you know, he wanted to put them together. So that's the downside for me. However, the palette still gets a 10. I feel like I should kind of give it like a 7 though, because it's like there's a whole shade in here that I can't use, and there's a whole shade in here that someone else was lighter than I can't use. So I really want to, I guess I'll just give it an 8 and call it a day because of this one shade right here. But everything else, like from here on, honey, yes, Patrick, honey, you did all that. And that's probably why all the girls over there on TikTok talking about you, because honey, you be killing it. Now, of course, y'all know I had to bring up the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes. Everyone was obsessed with this last year. I personally was not, but I mean, we see none of the tones are here really working for me. I mainly bought it to see if the shimmers were as amazing as he made them look, and they are very nice. They're definitely better than the ones in the Charlotte's Tilbury holiday palette that she came out with this year. But as far as the mattes go, the mattes in here just don't do it for some of my skin tone. Like, I'd have to get like his Master Mattes palette, and since I already have one for Patrick Ta, I don't really feel the need to get that, other than to compare it to the Patrick Ta. But Morgan Turner has already done that, so I'm trying to learn that just because, you know, you had an idea to do something, someone else already did it, you don't have to go out and do it. Although I haven't seen anybody who's my skin tone do that, so that's why I'm kind of like intrigued and still want to do it. But I'm sure I can just look somebody up and find it. But back to this palette, I give this a like 7 because I like his matte formula okay. The shimmers weren't as great as I expected them to be. They were better than Charlotte Tilbury, but like they were okay. And then like a lot of the tones in here don't work for anyone my skin tone, so I don't really look to Makeup by Mario for eyeshadow anyway, because it's like he does a lot of neutral looks, so I'm not expecting someone who does a lot of neutral looks to give me anything fun or colorful in any way. Unless you're Pat McGrath, because you know, like you're Pat McGrath, you make special fun shades, and I expect that from you eventually. But yeah, so this one gets a 7 from me just because the formulas are just okay, and then the color story isn't really working for anybody, so it's not as inclusive as some of the other stuff that we just talked about. So there's that. At least I feel like with Patrick's, it's a little bit more inclusive, because at least his are like mid-tone shades. It's like I can use the cream and make the mid-tone shade darker. Like with what I just showed you for Makeup by Mario, I can't make that darker. It's just too light. Last person we have to talk about, or like one of the last 2 people we have to talk about, of course, is Natasha Denona, honey. Okay, so we're gonna start off with the Yucca palette. Now I changed mine around, so just be advised. I put an orange in here, so I took out the other orange shade that wasn't as bright as I'd like it to be, which this shade is. And I think I moved something around, but that was pretty much it. This is like literally the only thing I added. Everything else I kept the same. I know it looks like I could have used this palette to make the eye look I made now because I added this orange, but no, that's not what I have on my eyes. I actually have on the Juvia's Place Alpha Galactic palette. Random side note, that video will be coming eventually. I don't know when, girl, but this is what it looks like on the inside. I like the color story of this. I like the formulas in this. I think this is like one of the best palettes she launched this year, so I give this one, believe it or not, a 10, even though I had to take out that one shade. But my whole thing is, if I only have to complain about one shade in your entire palette, I feel like that means you did an excellent job, because there's only one shade I'm complaining about. There's how many shades in that? I think like 15 or something. The fact I only complained about one, I feel like you did a good job. And the next one we have to talk about is I Need a Nude from Natasha Denona. Now this is the one that sold out quickly and everybody was in love with. Y'all know this is in my color aesthetic or selection, so I wasn't necessarily crazy about it. It just gives me the vibes on the Makeup by Mario one, but the brown in here is a little bit deeper, so it works a little bit better for people my skin tone than some of the other shades. But as a whole, I just like Makeup by Mario's palette. I give this a 7 because it's like all she did was added Super Shock shimmer formulas to one of her eyeshadow formulas and called it a new formula. We've had Super Shocks forever, we just haven't had bougie Super Shock shadows, for lack of a better term. And then a lot of the tones in here are a little too light for some of my skin tones, so I'm gonna redo mine personally. If you all are new to my channel and found me based upon this video saying TikTok, I recreate my Natasha Denona palettes, my ColourPop palettes, my Melt palettes, and my Menagerie palettes, if you've heard of Menagerie Cosmetics. So I will most likely be recreating this one and making it something better, so it's gonna get a 7 too, just because it does do a little bit better when it comes to the deeper outer V shades, but a lot of shades in here are still like really similar and too close for my liking and don't really work as best on my skin tone as some other brands have made neutral palettes like Patrick Ta does. Lastly, we have the Mini Trio Chrome palette. Now this one, I actually feel like I can give this one a like 8 or 9, just because it's a nice monochromatic blue color story with a fun shifting shadow in it. So I made a really nice look with this palette. You all said you liked the look I made with it, so I would definitely give this like an 8 or 9. I'm not gonna give it a perfect 10 just because it is limited in what you can do because of the limited amount of shades in it, but I still feel like with the limited amount of shades in it, I can create some nice looks. And since it's like all different tones of blue, I have a better chance of making a nice look, or just using a couple of the mattes and using one of these shimmers in the inner corner or something like that. So this one's gonna get a 9. Plus, if you didn't know, I bias and I have a love of blue, green, and purple eyeshadow. So the fact that it's a blue eyeshadow palette just puts it higher up. Last person we have to talk about, of course, is Mother Pat McGrath, billionaire makeup lady Pat McGrath. So this is her little holiday trios. Now I don't know what is popular on TikTok when it comes to Pat McGrath. I just know Pat McGrath is a very popular brand, so I wanted to touch on it. So I had just reviewed these recently, so I just left them here to talk about it. So this is the Lunar Shade palette. This is what she looks like on the inside. It is quite stunning. I love the color story of this. I can't wait to pair this with some of my other palettes, because I feel like it'll look great with some of my other palettes. And I want to do a like favorite palette combinations video where I talk about palettes that I pair with other palettes, and I can definitely see myself pairing this with the Rogue palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. I definitely think this would be a great palette to pair with it. When I rank this one, this is the one I would give like the highest ranking, just because it's the most unique color story for her. A lot of the other ones have similar colors from the other smaller palettes she's already made in the past, and she only has, I think, like 5 of these, because there's the 2 from the holiday set from the year before in 2022, and then there's, or is it 2021, and then there's what do you call it, the ones from the Star Wars collection. So it's 3 of those. So it's like between those 5 you already have some of the other things. So this one to me gets like an 8 or 9, because the downside is you only have this one matte and you have all these shimmers that you should work with this one matte. So that's what makes it lower for me, and that's why it's getting a 9 out of 10. If she had just given another matte to work with, I feel like I would have liked it a lot better. Next we have Sunset Romance, and this is what I was talking about when it says similar tones. To me this really gives a similar vibe of the golden one from the Star Wars collection with I forgot his name, CPO something, CPO 3 or something like that. That palette, it looks really similar to that. This one pulls a little bit more mauve-ish, whereas I feel like that one pulls a little more reddish orangish. That's the only difference between them two, but it has the same kind of like color setup and concept. So this one ranks lower to me just because it's like, I do like mauves though, so I would rank this one higher than I would that one, because I like more mauve-ish tones like I feel like this is trying to be. But I feel like it's in the same color family and it's not that unique. So I'd have to give this one like a 7 or an 8, just because it's not giving all of what I would hope it would give, and that's a little bit disappointing. Last one I have to talk about, which is my least favorite one. This is the Bronze Ecstasy, but if you can't tell, I'm a lover of color. So the fact that this is just some neutral bronziest or ashy neutral bronze palette isn't giving, because I feel like if you already have the mini glam palette, then you don't even need to like really get this. This one does pull a little bit deeper than that one does. So if you're my skin tone, you would like Bronze Ecstasy over the glam palette, just because the glam palette isn't giving as much depth as this one was. So I would give this one a 7 or an 8 too, just because the quality is nice. It does give you a decent amount of mattes, but I just feel like she always pulls tones like this every year. So the fact that you keep pulling them and thinking I should still be excited, I'm just not feeling it. So those are all the TikTok makeup things that I had to rank as far as eyeshadow palettes go. I told y'all I don't really be on TikTok that often, but these are the few brands that I do feel like I see on TikTok consistently, so I wanted to talk about them. So you asked and you received. I want to do one on fragrances and like skincare, because I definitely feel like Glow Recipe and some other skincare brands be popping over there and everybody talks about them. So you can comment down below and tell me if you're interested or not, or I can just add them into the next one of these I do with the makeup products. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. Remember, you all are diamonds. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Be blessed, girl. Bye. So sorry, y'all, I forgot about one person, Danessa Myricks. So this is the Lightworks Volume 5 I Am palette. So this is what she looks like on the inside. I know Danessa Myricks is pretty hyped up on Instagram, and I feel like I've seen her popping up on TikTok a lot as well. So I figure I should go ahead and talk about this palette. Easily, obviously, this palette gets a 10 out of 10. First of all, she didn't put those shades in between that we cannot stand, which I can definitely appreciate, because everybody was talking about how horrible they were in the first 2. But I think the second one was already in production, and that's why she couldn't change it. So she changed it to the third one. I really like the formulas and the textures and the colors in this. I feel like this is a great buy for people who want to try out indie makeup but don't like really know where to start and don't want to be overwhelmed. This is a simple one they can go in Sephora and grab and try that type of formula and shadow and see how they feel about it. So I definitely feel like this is a great palette, and it gets a 10 from me. Okay, y'all, I'm gone for real now. Bye.